Now, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to tell you this, that's an insurrection. We'll start with this. Now, the important thing about this clip, look in the background as well, back where my mouse is behind this guy with the yellow hat. You'll see other people throwing stuff as well. Sam? There's more over there. Okay, now keep in mind, let's see some more clips and then ask yourself if you think this meets the definition, right? That looked violent to me. I don't know, I'm no expert. How about this one?
To access where all of this is playing out right now, where our ground camera is, they're going to have to get through this.
Oh,
these
here we go.
Two of those SUVs are now essentially going around this
throwing things at the bus, wearing Mexican
really
flags,
standing
in front of the
right
bus,
now.
hitting it.
I'm seeing one of the doors open.
They're shooting out the window
on one of those vehicles. It's hard to tell if that's.
Look at he's out. He's playing around.
But we're right now seeing some.
Okay. Let's see some more. That one wasn't the best.
Vantage point that we would not have without having helicopters there in the sky. Look at this, Austin.
Mexican flags?
Mexican flags. The line of law enforcement agents there during this face-off.
They're clashing?
It appears to be a face-off.
Yeah, and it's tough to tell sometime from a distance, but it looked to be the color of the sheriff's deputies that are creating that wall there. Looks like they're trying to create a human barrier so that they cannot get on that overpass, at least what looks to be an overpass to me from our vantage point.
That looks like impeding law enforcement to me.
This is...
I don't know. I guess I'm no expert, though.
Oh, and there's some sort of smoke grenade that's been placed inside of that vehicle.
Lighting vehicles on fire?
Is smoking. That's dark smoke inside that vehicle. So we very well may be seeing the start of a vehicle fire, and it looks like we are. This thing is lighting up, and that's pretty much, police are going to have, presumably, fire crews are going to have to presumably move in and take control of this situation as it gets even more dangerous. Again, this is the intersection of Alondra Boulevard and Atlantic Avenue in Compton, California.
They have weapons and shields, throwing shit back at police.
No like de la llanta.
Self-explanatory.
Sacando el aire a la llanta.
Lighting fires, blocking the road. Looks like a war zone, locals said. Here they are fighting.
This shit is real.
Let's see some more. Graffiti saying to harm ICE, harm law enforcement. Here they are clashing with police some more. Lighting fires, trying to prevent vehicles from leaving, police from leaving. They're leaking ICE raids ahead of time and showing up to try to prevent them. That's in Minneapolis. Here they are from June 6th. That was yesterday. Attacking law enforcement having to deploy weapons to get them back. Here they are clashing with police again. And again. And again. Here they are swarming law enforcement vehicles. wearing their Mexican flags, trying to intimidate law enforcement. Let's keep going back.
You
There
on?
last night,
Oh, okay.
attacking
Yep, be
ICE
careful,
vehicles.
brother. I'm not getting shot.
That's from last night. Kill ICE. Let's keep going. Here we see them attacking here. They have pre-made shields and weapons. Here's them surrounding a detention center. Stephen Miller's calling it an insurrection. Here's the post I made last night. I said, Pisco outlined 4 parts of an insurrection over and over when talking about January 6th. Now that we see left-wing insurrectionists targeting ICE, he claims it doesn't meet his definition. I asked him if he could say it. He said last night, hey, ICE, go F yourself, when the head of ICE said he was demanding that politicians stop inflaming rhetoric. He says, ICE, go F yourself. I said, why won't you condemn these insurrections? He says, just because you never learned the elements of insurrection doesn't mean that we are all so similarly disadvantaged. So he says. That's what he says. He don't know. So now that you saw those, let me read you his and Destiny and these guys, Bowden Paulson, whose paper was used in a lot of the hearings claiming that January 6th was an insurrection. Here's the 4 parts of an insurrection, right? Now, what I want from the chat is a simple yes or no. I'm going to read part 1, and then we'll ask the chat if they think that what we saw meets that definition. Here's what they claim are the parts of an insurrection. 1, was this an assemblage of persons? What do y'all think? Was it an assemblage of persons? Yeah, it looked like it to me too. Okay, so we could all agree. Meets that. Acting to prevent the execution of one or more federal laws. Now, during my debates, we got into it and we were told it's not just the execution of laws. It could be going against officers that are attempting to execute. Do you think that they were acting to prevent the execution of one or more federal laws, such as a law for deportations? What do you think? Yes or no? Well, I think that's indisputable. That's what they're doing. 3rd, for a public purpose. Now, let me explain what for a public purpose means. For a public purpose means it can't just be to protect your boy from being arrested. It has to be for a broader purpose. So if you're just saying, I know Jesus there and I don't want him deported, then no, it wouldn't be for a public purpose. But if you say, I don't want these immigrants deported, I'm against the deportation, what do you think? Is that a public purpose? And last step, everyone, so far we got all yeses. Last step, was it through the use of violence, force, or intimidation by numbers? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to tell you this, that's an insurrection. That is clear fucking cut insurrection based on the definition that they all used, that William Bald and Paulson used, that Destiny used, that Pisco used. That's a fucking insurrection. So when I asked Pisco, hey man, you gonna call it this insurrection? He says, bro, I'm sorry you don't know what an insurrection is, that you couldn't figure it out, but we can. We're not so disadvantaged. So then I said to him this morning, okay, can you tell everyone watching what your definition of insurrection is? And will you go on record and definitively say what we see occurring here is not an insurrection? Will you say that? Will you go on the record? And of course, he was like, I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to. I want to talk to you first about you used the term insurrection to describe some of the Black Lives Matter actions. So I want to talk about that. And then maybe I'll talk about this. Now, I'll go back to the beginning of this video. I don't give a fuck about the term insurrection. I don't think these are insurrections here. But why do my standards matter? Why shouldn't Pisco and Destiny and Bode and the January 6th committee and the DOJ and all the Democrats who said January 6th was an insurrection, okay, then why isn't this? Especially when these individuals I'm talking to, like Destiny, etc., they gave me the definition. I told them. So did Andrew Wilson. Your definition of the term insurrection is so broad that it's going to encompass a lot of events that we've seen from left-wingers in the past, including events that were cheered on, either the actors or the cause of, the meaning behind these insurrections will be causes that Democrats cheered. And it will happen again in the future. And when it does, you are going to be like, well. So Pisco tried pulling the, I'm not going to talk to you because you're bad faith. Where am I bad faith about it? I said I didn't feel the Black Lives Matter and shit was an insurrection. I said I didn't feel January 6th was. I said I didn't really give a shit about the term. I didn't want to see the authoritarian. I don't want to see Pisco or people like him censored on social media because the government's pressuring social media to censor people that are saying things that they think could incite violence or lead to an insurrection. I don't want to see that. But that's what they were okay with when people like me got censored. If I said things critical of the 2020 election, because the government put pressure on social media to censor people because they said it was leading to insurrections. Remember that? I don't want to see that occur. My standard is that's bad. That would be bad if the Biden team did it and Democrats. That would be bad if the Trump team did it. It'd be bad. I wouldn't like that. But that's what these people deserve. That's the standard that's been set forth. They were fine with it. They said, good. I don't want to see Democrats kept off the ballot so that people don't have the right to make a choice in elections because we're said that they engaged in an insurrection and they don't get a trial to prove that they didn't. I would personally not like to see that, but that's the standard now. I don't want to see the largest FBI investigation in history targeting anyone who didn't engage in violence, looking into their life with a fine-tooth comb. Insurrection hunters looking for faces of people that didn't engage in violence so that they could get smeared. I personally don't want to see that sort of thing, but that's the standard that's been set forth. I wouldn't really want to see the Republicans have a committee that basically only Democrats that were sycophantic were welcomed on and the rest of the Democrats weren't. And it hires a TV producer to make it cool national television so that they could get on and grandstand and shed tears and say, oh my God, we were so afraid. I personally don't want to see that. But that's the standard that we deal with. So why shouldn't they be held to the same standards that they held others? Just like I told these stupid fuckers, if you celebrate or ignored violence on the left, eventually it'll come on the right, and then you'll freak out. I said, if you're pushing for all this crazy shit because you're calling January 6th an insurrection, and you're using this hugely broad definition, eventually it will be used against people you want, and you will scream. Donald Trump sending the National Guard to L.A. to deal with this. One of the first things Pisco said was, it's Trump's authoritarianism. Remember when I told you that when you heard all the left say, why did Trump wait so long to send the National Guard on January 6th? Why did he wait so long? And I was like, well, really, even though he theoretically could have ordered it, he was listening to people that were telling him not to do it because of optics. In fact, Capitol Chief Sund, who was in charge of tasked with defending the Capitol, both before January 6th and during the day, repeatedly requested the National Guard and was rebuked because of optics. And I said, had Trump sent in the National Guard too early, the Democrats would have said, he's mobilizing his brown shirts. And now the Democrats are like, we wouldn't have said that bullshit. And now they're out there today bitching that Trump sent the National Guard after people that by their definition are insurrectionists. That's what's happening right fucking now. Now, of course, let me steel man my opponents. They'll say, no. We would have been fine January 6th and not here. And the reason they would have been fine is send the fucking police after those evil right-wingers, fuck them, crack their skulls open, shoot Ashley Babbitt. But oh my God, it would be terrible if the National Guard went after the left-wing insurrectionists. That would be terrible. What was my reaction the moment I saw violence on January 6th? I played you the tape. What was Pisco's? What was Destiny's? What was pretty much every other Democrat? Show me. Honest to God, if there's any Democrats in the chat right now, show me the Democrat leaders that are calling this out. Show me them. I would be interested to see. I saw LA Mayor Karen Bass bitching about Trump. I saw that, putting out a statement. Here's Gavin Newsom. Let's see what he had to say. As the federal government conducts chaotic immigration sweeps across the country, the state is deploying additional CHP to maintain safety on Los Angeles highways to keep in the peace. It's not their job to assist with federal enforcement. The federal government is sowing chaos so they can have an excuse to escalate. That doesn't sound like a guy that's condemning the violence. That sounds like a guy that's blaming the federal government for enforcing the law for causing the violence. That's what it sounds like. I didn't see Destiny condemn it. I didn't see shit he said because he blocked me like a little bitch. What'd Pisco say? He wouldn't call it an insurrection. He demanded that I talk about January 6th type shit. And for the record, let me say what Pisco's going to say. I told Pisco in my debate about my definition of insurrection, which, again, I don't give a shit about the definition of insurrection. I said I would say that I define it as a serious attempt to overthrow the government. Oh, that's a bad definition because blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't give a shit. No one called Black Lives Matter an insurrection. No one called January 6th an insurrection until it became politically expedient. Pisco claims that he dug up a couple instances of me calling Black Lives Matter or Antifa people insurrectionists. Now, the evidence that I remember him saying was from a video where I said the Chaz Zone people were insurrectionists. Now, arguably they were. That's a little different, though, because they literally took over parts of a city and held it through violence and were armed with guns. But nonetheless, I didn't say, oh, we should employ Section 14 or Section 3 of the 14th Amendment and keep people off the ballot and blah, 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 blah. I didn't say any of that. We should fucking arrest these pricks, just like they should arrest the pricks tonight, just like they should have arrested people that engaged in violence on January 6th. See how consistent that is? But yeah, good on you, Pisco. If you found out of thousands of hours of me talking 2 or 3 times that I said insurrectionist referring to Black Lives Matter, fine. Yep. Sometimes when you're just colloquially saying shit and yelling about stuff, you use certain terms. Okay, got me. Wow. Now, by the way, what did Pisco and all the left call all of those rioters Black Lives Matter? Pisco now says, I acknowledge that some of those incidents were insurrections. Okay, can you show me evidence that that's what you said at the time? Or did you only say it as a post hoc justification once you wanted to call January 6th an insurrection? Just curious. Because surely if you saw they were insurrectionists, you called it out at the time. When I asked Pisco this, he's like, well, I wasn't studious on it. I didn't do the research at the time. I wonder why. Perhaps a lack of curiosity for some reason? Nonetheless, ask yourself this. What was my initial reaction to seeing violence on January 6th? Condemnation. Even though the people in my chat were telling me not to do it. Even though it cost me viewers. I came out and was like, this is wrong. I condemn all political violence. Where's Pisco? This meets his definition of insurrection. He wouldn't give it. He definitively said, I didn't know the definition of insurrection when I asked if this was it. He wouldn't provide his definition until I provided my definition, which I did. Then he said, well, I have to do more research. That's what he said. He said, I'm not making a judgment yet on if what we're seeing here is an insurrection. I need to do more research. Then he proceeded to say that Trump's an authoritarian. He said, fuck ICE. He said that we should assume that ICE is engaged in lawlessness. That's what he said. So he sees these insurrectionists going against ICE, and his initial reaction isn't to say, holy fuck, insurrectionists, holy shit, stop the violence. His reaction is, well, we should assume that ICE is criminal. We should. We should. And fuck ICE, by the way. To the left, they'll say, Rob's a hypocrite. Why? Where am I a hypocrite? I said that the BLM people shouldn't be treated as insurrectionists, shouldn't have huge insurrectionist hunters, shouldn't have the largest task force in history going after people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, shouldn't be kicking people off the ballot. Never said that. Kamala Harris promoted a bail fund. I thought it was bad form. I said I wouldn't vote for her for reasons like that. Never suggested she should be removed from the ballot. I condemned all the violence on both sides. Where's the left? Where are they? Do you think for a second if Kamala Harris had won and they decided that they were going to enforce the law against gun owners, and all of a sudden we saw right-wingers taking to the streets and attacking law enforcement like this, do you think for a second that Democrats would be cool if Republicans were basically silent on it? It would be the biggest story right now. Every single news outlet would be covering it nonstop. CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, New York Times, all of them would have their top people writing stories right now on TV. Oh my God, what a dark day for the country. Now what do we get? Crickets. Then you get the dumber fucking lefties. This clearly isn't an insurrection. But they can't even keep their own bullshit straight. They can't keep it straight.